The sea is never silent. It breathes, it whispers, it sings in tones only hearts can truly hear. Beneath its endless blue, stories move like shadows, old as time itself. This is one such story. It begins not with thunder or fire, but with a calm horizon, wide and pure. The waves roll gently, their voices soft, their rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Yet even in calm waters, secrets stir. And the sea, vast and eternal, holds a secret it cannot keep for long. For the ocean is not just water and salt. It is alive. It feels, it remembers, it longs to be understood. And at its center stands Poseidon, not as a figure of fear, but as a guardian of balance, a keeper of promises. He listens to the tides, to the whispers carried in the currents. He hears joy. He hears sorrow. He hears unrest rising like a hidden storm. Tonight, we drift into his world, a world where waves have voices and silence carries weight, where harmony is fragile and the sea's heart beats with both calm and conflict. This is the beginning of the war of waves. The sea moved as if dreaming. Its surface glittered with light, but its depth shifted with quiet unease. A ripple ran across the water, small at first, then spreading far and wide. Fish darted nervously, sensing something that eyes could not see. Dolphins leapt, not in play, but in warning. Whales sang songs that carried sorrow instead of joy. The ocean was restless, and every creature felt the change. In the silence between waves, whispers began to rise. They were not words, yet they were voices. Currents spoke, unseen but strong, tugging against one another. The tide no longer followed its gentle path with grace. It pushed harder, faster, like a heart beating out of rhythm. Seabirds circled above, their cries sharp against the wind. Even the coral seemed to tremble, swaying in anxious rhythm. Poseidon stood at the edge of his kingdom. He could feel it in the salt that touched his skin. Something deep was shifting, something hidden yet powerful. He closed his eyes and listened. The sea did not speak in sentences, but he understood. It told him of unease, of dissonance beneath the calm. It told him of tides rising higher than they should. It told him of storms forming before their time. The balance was trembling, like a shell about to crack. Poseidon's gaze swept the horizon. It looked calm, but calm can be a mask. Beneath, the ocean's heart was unsettled. He summoned the dolphins, swift messengers of the deep. They came in silver arcs, their fins cutting the water. Their voices carried urgency, notes sharp as warning bells. They told of rivers swelling, of coasts pulled by strange currents. They told of seagrass meadows uprooted, drifting into the unknown. Even the smallest fish had felt it. The ocean's harmony was breaking. Poseidon called upon the whales, guardians of song. Their voices rose from the depths, low and haunting. Each note painted a picture of disorder. Storms spun where calm once lived. Currents collided, pushing against one another like rivals. The whales mourned the loss of rhythm. Poseidon listened, his heart heavy. He had ruled these waters for ages beyond count. He had heard laughter of waves and cries of storms. But this was different. This was not storm or season. This was the ocean itself rebelling. He descended deeper, where light began to fade. There, in the half-dark, the sea's voice grew stronger. It was not a single voice, but many. The waves argued, currents pulled apart, tides pressed against one another. It was a chorus of dissonance, rising louder with each passing moment. Poseidon lifted his trident, not in anger, but in listening. The ocean spoke to him all at once. It said, "We are not heard." It said, "We are unseen, forgotten, taken for granted." Poseidon felt the truth in their cry. This was not a storm to be calmed by command. It was a plea, a demand for recognition. The sea did not want destruction. It wanted to be understood. Poseidon breathed deeply, the salt air filling him with resolve. The whisper of the deep was no longer a whisper. It was a call, a summons he could not ignore. And so, with calm steps and steady will, he prepared to answer. The first chapter of the War of Waves had begun. The sea called, and its voices grew many. Poseidon knew he could not face this unrest alone. He summoned a gathering, a council beneath the waves. From rivers, lakes, and distant shores, guardians answered. The Nereids came first, their hair flowing like silver threads. They carried songs of shallow tides and gentle reefs. Each spoke of strange rises, floods where calm once ruled. The Naiads arrived next, spirits of rivers and streams. They told of waters rushing faster than before. They spoke of banks crumbling, fields drowned in sudden surges. Merfolk swam in from distant currents, their eyes wide with worry. They described whirlpools forming without warning in open seas. Boats were lost, not by storm, but by sudden pull. From coral groves came tiny spirits, glowing faintly. They were small but carried truth in their trembling voices. Their reefs were breaking, their colors fading, their homes torn apart. Sea turtles joined, their shells scarred by drifting wreckage. They had traveled far across vast oceans to bring their witness. They spoke of changing currents, paths no longer familiar. Even the whales returned, their songs echoing in the chamber. Each note described sorrow, imbalance, a sea out of tune. Poseidon raised his trident. The council fell silent. He listened first, as every voice mattered here. One by one, the waters spoke through their guardians. They did not speak of war and weapons or wounds. They spoke of confusion, of being pulled in too many ways. The north tides clashed with the southern waves. The eastern currents refused the pull of the west. It was a struggle of direction, a chaos of rhythm. Poseidon's gaze softened as he heard their truth. The sea was not angry for anger's sake. It was crying out, desperate to be seen and understood. He spoke, his voice deep but calm, carrying weight. I have heard you. Each voice is part of the whole. The waves cannot be harmony if they do not listen. The sea cannot be balance if parts are forgotten. The council leaned closer, silence deep as the abyss. The Nereids whispered of songs to calm the tides. The Naiads offered to slow their rushing streams. The merfolk pledged to guide travelers through safer paths. But still, the currents beneath stirred uneasily. Their voices rose, overlapping, restless, unwilling to yield. The council trembled with their dissonance. It was no storm, yet it shook the chamber like thunder. Poseidon stood firm, steady as a lighthouse in fog. Peace will not come in one voice alone, he said. It must come when all voices rise together, not against. He placed his trident upon the sea floor. Its sound rang like a bell, clear and steady. The noise of discord slowed, though faintly. For a moment, the council breathed in quiet unity. Then the silence broke once more, softer but unresolved. The guardians looked to Poseidon, hope and fear mixed. They had gathered, they had spoken, but harmony was fragile still. The god of the sea knew this was only the beginning. The council had revealed the depth of the rift. The ocean's heart was divided, its voices clashing, and unless they found a new rhythm, the waves would not rest. Poseidon raised his eyes toward the distant surface. Light shimmered faintly, as if urging him onward. He knew the next step awaited. For the war of waves was no longer a whisper. It was a storm of voices, demanding to be heard. The ocean once sang in rhythm. Its waves carried music, rising and falling with gentle grace. But now, that rhythm was broken. The north pulled hard, strong and relentless, as if chasing the pole star. The south resisted, steady and deep, unwilling to move. The clash of directions sent ripples across every shore. The east currents twisted like dancers gone astray. The west pushed back, stubborn as stone, refusing their lead. The sea was no longer a song. It was 1,000 voices shouting at once. Ships swayed uneasily, though skies above were calm. Fishermen looked at waters that no longer obeyed the moon. Even the tides seemed uncertain, rushing when they should have rested. Children on coasts watched waves fight each other at the shore. The sea, once a cradle, became restless in their eyes. Poseidon walked among the swells, each step stirring foam. He felt the tension, sharp as strings pulled too tight. Every wave seemed ready to break, yet none found release. He reached out his hand, touching the crest of a wave. It recoiled, angry, crashing against its neighbor. Another rose to strike, not against land, but against sea itself. The water argued, each part shouting its strength. It was not destruction they sought, it was recognition. The Nereids sang, their melodies weaving through the currents. But their voices were drowned in the rising uproar. The Naiads offered calm streams, but they too were swept away. Even the whales' deep songs struggled to be heard. The war was not in silence, it was in sound. The ocean roared, clashed, and thundered without storm clouds. Lightning was absent, yet the sea shone with restless sparks. Corals rattled, stones shifted, sands lifted in protest. Poseidon raised his trident high. Its golden prongs glowed, casting light into the turmoil. "Waves," he called, his voice rolling like thunder without anger. "You are parts of one ocean. Why do you fight each other?" But the waves did not answer with words. They struck harder, crashing in defiance. North struck south, east pressed against west. A spiral formed, whirling like a furious dance. Poseidon stood firm, letting the spray strike his chest. He would not silence them by command. He would listen. He leaned into the roar, letting each current speak. The north said it was strong, it bore the ice and winds. The south said it was ancient, deep with memory. The east said it was swift, carrying light from the dawn. The west said it was steady, guarding shores from collapse. Each claimed importance, each demanded to lead. Together, they became chaos. Poseidon saw the truth in their struggle. They were not enemies. They were brothers and sisters, forgetting the unity of their bond. He lowered his trident, his voice softer now. "You are all needed. Without each, the sea cannot breathe." But the waves did not yet understand. They rose higher, louder, furious in their pride. The ocean shuddered with their conflict. Above, seabirds fled, their cries sharp in the wind. Below, creatures hid in caves, waiting for calm. Still Poseidon stood, unwavering. He knew storms could be endured, but dissonance could only be healed. The war of waves had begun not with swords, but with voices. And if he could not bring harmony, the ocean itself might tear apart. Poseidon drifted into silence. The sea around him roared, but within, he sought stillness. He felt the weight of ages pressing against his heart. He was a god, yet gods too could falter. The waves had once trusted him, followed his hand with ease. Now they pulled apart, resisting his guidance, doubting his care. He wondered if he had grown distant, deaf to their cries. Perhaps he had listened too long to storms, forgetting whispers. Perhaps he had ruled with command when he should have heard. The ocean was vast, but so were its wounds. Poseidon walked deeper. letting the cold currents brush his skin. He thought of the promises he once made, to guard the seas, to cherish the smallest drop as much as the tide. He thought of the rivers that flowed to him, trusting his embrace. He thought of the corals that bloomed beneath his watch. And now he felt their sorrow, heavy as anchors. The god of the sea closed his eyes. Memories rose, shimmering like shells in shifting sand. He remembered the first wave that greeted him with joy. He remembered the songs of whales, filling the dark with warmth. He remembered laughter carried by dolphins leaping in silver arcs. Had he forgotten them? Had he let his gaze drift too high, to thunder and skies? The sea was not only power, it was tenderness, life, countless voices woven into one song. Now that song was broken, its notes scattered in confusion. Poseidon sighed, a sound that stirred the calm beneath the fury. Even gods must reflect. Even gods must learn anew. He looked at his trident, glowing faintly in his hand. It was a symbol of power, but also of promise. A promise to guide, not to command. To listen, not only to lead. The roar of waves struck him again, wild and unyielding. But in their anger, he heard truth. They did not hate him. They feared being forgotten. They feared silence. Poseidon placed his hand upon the sea floor. The sand shifted, welcoming his touch. "I hear you," he whispered, though no ear could catch it. "I will not turn away." The water stilled, only for a heartbeat. Then it rose again, but softer, like it was listening too. A flicker of balance, fragile but present, touched the current. Poseidon opened his eyes, brighter now with resolve. He would not silence the waves with force. He would not drown their voices with command. He would guide them back to harmony through patience. The god of the sea rose, tall against the rolling tides. He lifted his gaze to the horizon, glowing faint with dawn. The world above still trusted the sea to cradle it. He could not let that trust be broken. The war of waves was not yet fury. It was a plea in the language of water. Poseidon knew then that he must walk not as ruler. He must walk as guardian, as listener, as keeper of balance. The reflection ended, but its weight stayed with him. The sea needed his heart, not only his power. And Poseidon vowed he would give both. For without harmony, the ocean could not endure. And without the ocean, neither could the world. From the depths came a shimmer of light. Soft voices drifted through the water, carrying calm like a breeze. The Nereids, daughters of the sea, had come. Their presence was gentle, their beauty woven of tide and foam. They moved with grace, weaving around Poseidon in flowing arcs. Each carried a note of music, fragile yet bright. Their song rose, a melody born of moonlit waters. It slipped between waves, touching the restless currents. The sea stirred, its rage softened by the sound. Storming tides slowed, listening as if caught in memory. The Nereids sang of dawns where seas were still. They sang of reefs glowing with color, of children swimming in joy. They sang of harmony when all waters knew their place. The melody wrapped itself around the chaos. It did not silence, but it soothed. Even the whales added their voices, low and deep. Together, the music filled the ocean with longing. Poseidon watched as the waves bent, if only for a moment. The song held them, calming the fury, guiding their rhythm. But balance was fragile. The notes began to fade, like light swallowed by depth. The waves shivered, remembering their quarrel. The roar of currents returned, though softer now. The Nereids paused, their eyes shimmering with sadness. "Great Lord," they said, "we cannot hold them for long. The sea does not wish to be bound. It wishes to be heard." Poseidon nodded, their truth heavy in his heart. Your song shows their sorrow. It is not rage, but longing. He listened again, past the fading music. He heard the waves muttering beneath their calm. Not destruction, not hunger, but a plea for freedom, for recognition, for place. The Nereids drew closer, circling him with light. They spoke in whispers, their voices soft as tides at rest. The waves are children of the sea, Lord. They seek a father's ear. They rise because they wish to be seen. They fight because they fear being forgotten. Poseidon closed his eyes, letting their words settle within. The truth was clear, and it struck deeper than storms. He had guarded the sea with strength, but not always with care. He had spoken, but not always listened. And now the sea itself demanded to be heard. The Nereids sang once more, and their song gentler now. It was not to silence, but to open a path. Through their voices, the waves could speak. The currents shifted, carrying whispers like drifting shells. Poseidon leaned closer, his ear upon the heartbeat of the sea. He heard stories hidden for ages. The northern tide told of frozen winds, sharp and merciless. The southern tide spoke of depths where silence weighed heavy. The eastern tide sang of dawns and beginnings. The western tide carried endings, guarding shores with patience. Each voice unique, each truth real. None lesser, none greater. The Nereid song faded into quiet. But their gift remained. They had shown Poseidon the voices within the storm. He raised his trident slowly, not in command, but in promise. "I will hear you," he said, steady as the tide. "You will not be silenced. You will not be forgotten." The waves stirred, uncertain yet listening. A fragile peace touched the ocean, faint but alive. The Nereids bowed, their task complete, their eyes filled with hope. Poseidon knew the journey was only beginning. The war of waves was not rage against him. It was a chorus seeking harmony, waiting for his heart to answer. The ocean floor trembled with a steady hum. From the deep chasms rose a glow, golden and vast. Ancient sea turtles emerged, slow yet unyielding in grace. Their shells bore carvings of tides older than memory. They were the keepers of stories, the guardians of time. Each carried wisdom etched by centuries of drifting currents. They circled Poseidon, moving like planets around a sun. Their eyes were calm, but filled with endless knowing. One spoke, its voice deep as the seabed itself. "Lord of the deep, the waves cry for guidance." Yet guidance is not command. It is listening. It is balance. Another turtle raised its head, breathing bubbles of light. The sea remembers what even gods forget. Every ripple carries the tale of a world it has touched. Poseidon bowed his head, feeling their truth. He had ruled with strength, but wisdom required patience. He asked, "Tell me then, how do I heal what is broken?" The eldest turtle drifted closer, its shell glowing faint. "Do not silence the storm. Walk within it. Let the waves speak until their voice grows clear. Only then will they trust you again." The turtles sang in low tones, a chant of ages. It was not a melody, but a rhythm steady as the earth. The sea quieted, leaning closer to hear. Even the restless tide stilled at the sound. Poseidon felt the chant wrap around him like tide and sand. He realized wisdom was not found in might, but in humility. The turtles spoke again, their words like flowing current. "The war of waves is not against you, Lord. It is a mirror, showing what the sea has become. The waves long for harmony, not victory. Their struggle is their plea." Poseidon raised his trident, watching its glow soften. It no longer burned with command, but pulsed with promise. He pressed it gently into the sand, marking the ocean floor. "I will walk within the storm," he vowed. "I will listen until the sea feels heard." The turtles nodded, their eyes glimmering with approval. They moved outward, forming a circle wide as the horizon. From their shells rose visions of seas long past. He saw children playing on shores, laughing in sunlight. He saw fishermen praying with gratitude, not fear. He saw rivers rushing with joy to meet the ocean. Each vision shimmered, then melted into the tide. The turtles' voices blended once more. "The ocean is life, Lord. Its song must not be forgotten. Protect it not as master, but as guardian." Their glow faded slowly, sinking back toward the deep. The hum of the seabed softened to silence. Only Poseidon remained, the promise still heavy in his chest. The waves stirred, restless but listening. Their roar was not as wild now, but questioning. Poseidon lifted his gaze, steady as the rising tide. "Speak," he whispered to the waters. "Tell me what you need." The sea rumbled, 1,000 voices blending into one. Not yet clear, not yet calm, but no longer fury, no longer blind rage. It was the beginning of dialogue, fragile but true. Poseidon felt the path opening before him. The turtles had shown him the way. The war of waves would not be ended by force. It would be healed by listening, by patience, by love. And for the first time, the ocean answered with hope. The horizon shimmered with silver light. From the sky descended Iris, messenger of peace and rainbow. Her steps touched the waves without sinking, each one a prism of color. She came not with thunder, but with clarity. Her voice was soft, yet it carried across the sea. "Lord Poseidon," she called, "the heavens watch your trial." The winds grow restless, the skies lean closer. The balance of sea and sky is bound together. Poseidon lifted his gaze, the salt air brushing his brow. He knew her words bore truth as deep as tides. "The waves cry out," Iris continued, "but so do the winds. They call for unity, not dominion." The sea stirred at her presence. Its voice softened. The colors of her path danced upon the surface, calming the swells. Iris raised her hand, scattering light across the horizon. From that light came visions of harmony. A fisherman laying nets not in greed, but in gratitude. Children laughing where rivers kiss the sea. Birds gliding upon calm waters, carried without fear. The waves hummed, drawn to her gentle promise. Poseidon stepped forward, the trident still lowered. "Iris," he said, "the sea demands to be heard. How do I guide it without force?" The messenger smiled, her eyes like dawn breaking. "By weaving, not ruling. By listening, not commanding. The ocean is a choir, Lord. Each voice must find its place. The storm ends not when silenced, but when sung together." Her words lit the sea like lanterns in the dark. The currents slowed, swirling in patterns of wonder. Even the restless waves bent closer, listening. Poseidon felt the truth stir inside him. The sea did not need chains, it needed harmony. Iris spread her arms, and a rainbow arched across the water. It was fragile, fleeting, but brilliant. "The bridge between sky and sea," she said, "is trust. Without trust, the storm will return." She turned to Poseidon, her voice steady as tide. "You must promise not only to protect, but to share. The waves must feel your heart, not only your power." Poseidon placed his hand upon the water, letting it flow around him. "I will share. I will listen. I will not turn away." The sea answered with a murmur, not yet calm, but hopeful. The rainbow shimmered, each color deepening as if in agreement. The messenger's form began to fade into light. Her final words lingered like a soft breeze. "Remember, Lord, Even storms can be songs. And with that, she was gone, leaving only color upon the waves. Poseidon stood in silence, the sea alive beneath him. He felt the whispers of water, uncertain yet reaching. The war of waves was shifting, not a battle of power, but a journey of trust. The god of the sea breathed deep, his heart steady. The sky had spoken, the sea had begun to listen. And Poseidon knew that the path ahead would not be one of command. It would be one of harmony, fragile yet radiant as the rainbow. Beneath the calm surface, shadows began to stir. From the deep trenches rose beings of ancient silence. They were the Leviathans, guardians of depth and memory. Their bodies vast, their eyes glowing like distant stars. They carried the weight of secrets buried in darkness. As they approached, the water grew heavy with awe. Poseidon stood tall, though even he felt their might. The largest Leviathan spoke, its voice slow as stone. Lord of the seas, you seek harmony above the waves. But do you remember what lies below? The depths are not silent. They hold voices long forgotten. Poseidon listened, his heart tightening with the truth. He had walked the surface, ruled the tides, calmed the storms. But the abyss had remained veiled, its cries unheard. The Leviathan's gaze pierced him like a beam of twilight. The sea is not only surface, Lord. It is shadow and silence. If you forget the deep, the harmony above will crumble. Other Leviathans encircled, moving like mountains in motion. Each spoke with voices resonant as thunder in caves. We have seen the rise of empires, their fall into dust. We have carried wrecks upon our backs for ages. We have heard the prayers of the lost, the forgotten. Their words weighed heavy, yet not with anger. It was truth, slow and immovable as the seabed. Poseidon lowered his trident, bowing his head in respect. You are right. I have listened to storms, but not to silence. The Leviathans rumbled, the sea quivering with their song. It was no melody, but a vibration deep within the bones. The currents shifted, carrying echoes from the abyss. Poseidon closed his eyes, opening his spirit to the dark. He heard the voices of the deep, long muted. Corals whispering of wounds carved by neglect. Fish telling of currents twisted by thoughtless change. Ancient stones murmuring of tides older than the gods. The sound filled him, pressing heavy yet clear. The Leviathans watched, waiting for his heart to answer. Poseidon lifted his head, his voice steady as the tide. I will not forget you. I will listen to the deep. The sea is one, from surface to abyss. Its song must be whole. The largest Leviathan inclined its head, shadows rippling. Then you walk the path of truth, Lord of the seas. For harmony cannot rise without honoring silence. Their massive forms began to drift back into shadow, but their presence lingered, a weight that grounded the ocean. The sea grew quieter, not in fear, but in respect. Even the waves above hushed, listening to the deep. Poseidon stood still, his chest heavy with resolve. The war of waves was more than storms and cries. It was the ocean itself, surface and depth, seeking unity. The Leviathans had shown him the missing half. And Poseidon knew the journey was far from done. Harmony would demand not only patience, but remembrance. The sea was vast, but its heart was one. And every voice, from ripple to trench, must be heard. The tide shifted as the moon rose higher. From the pale glow came Selene, guardian of night skies. Her silver light spilled upon the waters, calm yet firm. She glided across the horizon, her eyes deep with sorrow. Lord of the sea, she whispered, your storm touches the stars. The moon pulls the waves, but they now resist my call. Their unrest echoes through the heavens, unsettling the balance. Poseidon bowed slightly, his voice heavy with truth. They cry for harmony, Selene. I have heard their plea. Selene's light shimmered, brushing the waves into gentle arcs. Yet, harmony is fragile, she said, like moonlight on still water. It bends at the slightest breath, and it fades if ignored. She lifted her hand, and the sea glowed silver beneath. The waves calmed, not by command, but by reflection. They mirrored the moon's face, finding steadiness in her light. Do you see? Selene asked softly. The sea does not need chains. It needs reflection. As it mirrors the moon, so must it mirror care. Poseidon felt her words sink deep into his spirit. I have ruled with power, he admitted, but not with patience. I must learn to mirror, as the sea mirrors you. Selene smiled faintly, her glow brighter with approval. Then you are closer to truth, Lord of the Deep. For power rules, but reflection heals. The waves shimmered, their fury softening into murmurs. They leaned toward her light, guided without force. Selene turned her gaze upon Poseidon once more. Promise me, God of the sea, she said. Promise that you will reflect the voices of your waters. Promise that their song will not be lost in thunder. Poseidon placed his hand upon the glowing tide. I promise. Their voices will be heard, from ripple to storm. Their song will be mine to guard, not to silence. The moonlight brightened, casting silver across the horizon. The sea answered with a hum, low but filled with trust. Selene's figure began to fade into the night sky. Her final words lingered, soft as the tide's retreat. Remember, Poseidon, even gods must reflect to be whole. The night deepened, stars flickering like whispers above. Poseidon stood in silence, the silver glow fading into memory. The sea beneath him stirred gently, no longer in defiance. It was listening, watching, waiting. The war of waves was changing, reshaped by patience and promise. It was no longer fury alone, it was dialogue, fragile but true. Poseidon lifted his trident, not as weapon, but as vow. He breathed deeply, steady as the tide. The sea had spoken, the moon had reflected. And for the first time, the god of the deep felt balance near. Dawn broke, painting the horizon in gold and rose. The first rays touched the waves, waking them gently. Eos, goddess of dawn, stepped upon the sky with grace. Her robes shimmered like the horizon itself, alive with light. She gazed down upon the restless sea, her face kind. Poseidon, she called, her voice warm yet resolute. The night has spoken to you. Now let the day speak. Poseidon raised his eyes, humbled by her radiance. The waves stir with new voices, he said. They seek balance. Eos descended closer, her light spilling upon the waters. The dawn carries hope, she said, but hope must be nourished. Do not let the promises of night vanish with morning. The sea remembers, but so does the sky. She touched the horizon, where sea and sky embraced. Every dawn is a promise renewed, she whispered. If you fail to honor it, harmony will fade like mist. Poseidon felt the truth within her words, steady and bright. He had listened to storms, silence, and moonlight's reflection. Now dawn urged him toward action, not just promise. What must I do? He asked, his voice low. Eos smiled, her light weaving patterns across the tide. Lead not by command, but by example, she answered. Show your waters what patience and care can build. Guide them as dawn guides the day, steady and sure. The sea rippled, glowing under her soft embrace. Fish leapt joyfully, sensing renewal in her light. Even the deepest currents seemed to lift, lighter than before. Poseidon lowered his trident, planting it gently in the surf. "I will be more than ruler," he said firmly. "I will be guardian, listener, and reflection of my sea." Eos's light flared, golden waves cresting toward the horizon. "Then you walk the path of true harmony, Lord of Tides. Remember, dawn does not erase night, it continues it. Your sea is not broken, it is waiting to be guided." Her words wrapped around him like warmth after chill. The sea shimmered, answering with a hum of trust. The waves no longer cried with fury, but with yearning. They leaned toward Poseidon, listening for his vow. He spread his arms wide, his voice carrying strong. "Waters of my realm, I hear you. From storm to stillness, from abyss to shore, I hear you. Together, we will weave harmony, like dawn and night entwined." The ocean roared, not in anger but in affirmation. The war of waves bent toward peace, shaped by promise. Eos smiled, her figure glowing brighter than the sun. Her final words lingered as the light filled the sky. "Guard your sea with patience. Guard it with love. For even gods must rise each day renewed." She vanished into daylight, leaving warmth upon the sea. Poseidon stood upon the waves, his heart steady. The dawn had spoken, and its promise was clear. Harmony was no longer dream, but choice. And Poseidon, Lord of the Deep, had chosen. The sea lay quiet beneath the final light of day. Waves rolled steady, no longer cries of war, but songs of peace. The horizon glowed with hues of fire, gold and violet. Poseidon stood upon the waters, his trident resting still. He looked to the sky, to the moon rising, to the stars. Each had spoken, each had guided him with truth. He remembered the storms that roared, the silence of the deep. He remembered Selena's reflection and Eos's promise renewed. Every voice of the ocean had become part of his own. He no longer ruled by command, but by listening. The sea had always been vast, yet now it felt whole. The currents flowed not in defiance, but in harmony. From the smallest ripple to the deepest trench, all sang. And Poseidon heard them as one chorus, unbroken. The war of waves had not ended in victory. It had ended in understanding and in unity. The leviathans watched from the dark, their eyes calm. The dolphins leapt, the whales called, the fish shimmered. Even the corals whispered, their colors brighter than before. The sea itself seemed to breathe with relief. Poseidon raised his trident, not as a weapon, but as vow. His voice carried across the endless waters. "Let the ocean be song, not storm. Let it be chorus, not cry. May every wave carry truth, and every current carry peace." The waters answered, rising and falling in rhythm, not as rebellion, but as affirmation of their Lord. The gods above looked down, their light mingling with the sea. The moon silvered the waves, the stars glittered in blessing. Even the dawn waited beyond the horizon with patience. Poseidon closed his eyes, his spirit steady as the tide. The sea was no longer restless, for it had been heard. Its voices had been gathered, its song restored. The war of waves had ended, not with conquest, but with remembrance, reflection, and renewal. He lowered his trident into the water, letting it glow. The waves shimmered, carrying his vow into every depth. From that day, the sea was not only his realm, it was his companion, his song, his eternal bond. The ocean stretched vast, endless, unknowable. Yet within its depths, peace now dwelt. The horizon darkened, stars filling the sky like whispers. Poseidon turned, walking across the calm waters. Behind him, the sea followed, steady and sure. Ahead, the night opened, quiet and infinite. The war of waves became a tale, passed like tide. A story of storm turned to song, a memory of a god who chose to listen. And so the ocean endured, vast and whole, not by fear, not by force, but by harmony, carried forever in its waves.